What's up, guys? It's been a while since I actually made a YouTube video. It's probably been about a year, just over 2 years, I believe, actually. Latest video will probably say something about a year maybe, but yeah. What brings me back is, I was gonna start making planes again. This is really like a vlogging account, so I was gonna start making planes again though, because that seems to be what you guys like so far. So it got the most views, at least. And I noticed there's some comments popping up. You know, people have been asking me for like blueprints, you know, plans, all that, schematics for the planes that I build. And I'm terrible at making those. So yeah, I thought instead of making one, I'm probably still gonna make one, but yeah, I thought instead of making those, I would just make like a build video. That's probably what we're gonna do today. Because right now, the current blueprints are really just this. I don't know if you can see that. It's literally just the outline and the sizes. That's about it. But there's nothing like internals or where you put such and such, how thick such and such is supposed to be, any details, none of that, no notes. It was literally just that, and I just kind of winged it. But yeah. So I'm just gonna build one of those on camera, I guess, and be another build video instead of like the ones that I have up now where it's actually a time lapse. This will be a whole build video. Real time. All right, so I believe if I last remember, it takes about 2 boards, a foam board for this plane. It's in like a 40-inch class. See at the bottom, yeah, 40-inch class plane, flying wing, blah blah blah. Total dimensions when complete, 40 by 19, not including any deviations that you guys may do or something like that. Don't want to mess up my table. Gonna measure each square, considering each square is 1 inch in actual scale. Start with the wings. The underbody is literally just halves. The upper body is the wings and the central part. So yeah, I'm gonna measure 3 up. Up. And since I know the rest of this is 15 up as well. From that 3, wish I had my yardstick. But yeah, each wing, since we're making the bottom part, it's 20 across, you know, since it's a 40, it's a class 40 wing, that's the size. It's just gonna be a full foam board across, so we go all the way across. All right, just gonna do some extra markers so I can, since I don't have my yardstick, I have to essentially draw all over it to make everything straight. Light line there. The central part is 2 inches across, so this being a half, gonna make that 1 inch. And that's where we start going into the little part right here. And that slope is gonna be going up by 1/2. So we're gonna go over by 2 more inches. but we're gonna go up 1 inch. Just making an extra marker. So these line 1 inch. I'm just gonna connect that to the 1 inch mark over here. Right. And then I can really just come back down to the corner over here. As you can see, this is barely long enough, just barely. And that's the bottom parts of the bottom part of this wing. How thick it is, let's see, down there. That's 5 from here, it's 13. Gonna measure 13 inches up from here, which makes a total of 18. But we're not counting the last inch because the last inch is for the little flat, the elevon. That's gonna be the control surface on the left side of the plane. Don't have my yardstick, which is really hindering me. Just need something straight. So I'm gonna use the board. The way the plane was built in the actual video, it had a flat front. So it's really gonna be 18 inches because that last inch is cut off and rounded off to where it looks similar to a flat nose of sorts. Kind of like this one. Put that back on the wall. Okay, I don't know if you can see the outline, but it's there for the bottom. We can cut that out. What I usually do is cut it out, and then I make the top. The top is slightly bigger than this, at least the wing portion. That comes about 1 inch in, because it has to curve over and make the little half airfoil. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut this out. I didn't have any white foam board. Well, at least not here. It's probably in another house. Little error there. The easy way to do this would be to just flip this over and try to get another wing out of it, because it's the same angle anyway. This just takes the guesswork out of having to make a whole nother tracing. And it's already there. You can really eyeball this if you want, which is what I usually do, if you have a steady enough hand. But if you want accuracy, I recommend using some kind of straight edge of sorts. I guess I'll eyeball this just for the sake of. I don't want to be in the shadows when I do that though. That's the bottom. As for the top, I usually have like a gradual difference in sweep for the wing's top, so it can curve over and make that airfoil shape, you know. These are flat bottom because it's simple. It's a simple plane, it'll fly. Not the most efficient. I even had a comment that told me about that, but I already knew it. It's just, you know, I was just trying to make something that would fly quickly, blah, blah, blah. Easy way to do it would be to take this. You can take this and move it about. Lay it on a new sheet. You can move it ½ inch up, and that should be enough to make the curve. Sometimes it's ½ inch here and 1 inch here in difference, so it kind of actually changes the angle. But I'm gonna do ½ inch already all the way across, just for a gradual sweep. So instead of 3 right here, like this edge, the bottom will be 3, and well, the top will be 3.5, so it can curve over, right? I actually think ½ inch might be too much, hence why I haven't made blueprints yet, because I haven't worked it out. But yeah, when you do that, you can probably trim it based off the curvature, and I'll show you how to make the curvature in a sec, but I'm pretty sure most of you may already be familiar with that, how to make the curve in something as stiff as this straight foam board by scoring lines in it. So that's the front. Back. Just gonna measure ½ inch from here. Now with that, I'm gonna use this other one as a sort of straight edge. That looks good. Another ½ inch. Cool. This last inch you don't really have to worry about, considering it's not going to be on the top. The top, once again, is like a little strip, a tunnel for you to put all the internals of it in. But you can just make it just so it's convenient to play with until you have to cut it off. Cutting's off today. Same thing, making another one. Little shortcut just for convenience sake. Once again, if you want the most accuracy, you probably should have a yardstick and not this right here, the straight edge. It's 18-inch straight edge. And two, you should probably do all the measurements properly. All right, we have our halves. This being the top. This being the bottom. I'm gonna assemble the bottom right now, just to have it already made. I used packing tape. Scotch tape, packing tape. We want it to be somewhat pretty, so I'm put all this blemishes on the inside. Yeah. Make sure. Cool. That should allow it to be like this, stiff. Doesn't want to fold back over. Okay, that's our bottom. As for how you connect it to the top, let's see. That's how prettier. Yeah. Okay. Flip them over like this, and that's how they're gonna go on. Same on the other side. And now with this, you'll notice it does the same thing as this in the back, or at the bottom, where it doesn't want to fold over. But you need those to fold over. The way you end up doing that, is you can take something like the back of your X-Acto knife. You can take like your pen, make sure you put the lead back in there. And you're gonna like do this, which makes a little divot. And that allows it to fold better. Alternatively, if you all about making even an interior that nobody will ever see, unless you take it apart, as pretty as possible, you could just bevel the edges as well. And by bevel, I mean taking the edge and cutting it to where it's at an angle. That'll also allow them to fold better. But once again, since nobody's gonna see the inside of this, this is perfectly fine too. And now it wants to fold. When you do fold these over, they're still gonna resist quite a bit. And to avoid creasing them, you might wanna fold them over with either your entire arm or something straight and flat. Something like maybe the cutting board that you have. It'll work just fine. Put it over there so they can be equal force over the entire thing. And just fold it over. Once they pop back, that's fine. You'll make the leading edge that way. If you beveled it, it may or may not be easier, depending on how tight you are with the tape. If you leave a little gap between the two pieces with the tape, it'll be far easier to fold. See, even now I stretched the tape, there's a crease. That crease doesn't exist over here because I didn't stretch it. Same thing over here. Probably gonna do it with my arm instead. Okay, as for getting the curvature or mimicking the curvature, a very rough curvature, you're gonna score the inside of this. Take your ruler and probably about every ½ inch on this side and maybe every 1½ inch on this side, the long side, you're gonna draw a line and score it. And that'll allow it to bend along this and mimic a curve. Very rough. It's obviously not the smooth, pretty curvatures that you see on an actual aircraft. But, you know, who also has an aircraft assembly line in their backyard? And you can actually space these out a bit further, maybe like 3/4 instead. I'm doing every 3 over here since I moved the other one up as well. Alright, with that, once again, my lack of yardstick is hurting me. Spacing these out differently will give you a different airfoil. This one's more gradual. There's one that can be abrupt where it's more airfoily, where it does most of the curvature at the leading edge of the wing. But you'd have to space these closer together for that. But first you need to make the score line. By scoring, I mean do not cut all the way through, otherwise you just cut your wing in half. Just a light score just to break the paper and some of the foam board. That being done, same as right here. And use my straight edge or something straight. Okay. And with that, you get your curvature. As you can see, it's trying to form there. Same over here. Don't forget your yardstick. Remember, score, do not cut all the way through. Snap pieces. There we go. Okay, there's two ways you can make the cutout for the inner tunnel. One, there's the actual calculating method, which again is the reason why I haven't made a proper blueprint. You could figure out, since this is a curved surface, how much you're supposed to cut off is gonna be not just straight through, it's gonna be a curve of sorts. Or you could eyeball it, like I did for that plane. That's on the other video. And by that, there's also two ways you can do that. You can either put this like this and glue it in its final position and then cut what's essentially gonna make 1 inch on each side, so the 2-inch width in the middle for the tunnel. Or you can kind of cut just slightly less than 1 inch off of each side, and that'll make it closer in. I'm probably going to do the latter. So I'm gonna measure 3/4 in. Same for the other side. And with that, it's starting to take shape. This plane, being as small as it is, would be fine if you were to glue these to the side right here. And then with the help of the support of the central tunnel, it would be fine to stay, you know, perfectly, it'd be strong. It'd be strong enough to survive some crashes. If you want more rigidity, you would add spars down the length of the wing to follow the curve. That also gives you the exact curve profile that you want, per se. That's kind of what it's looking like it's gonna be. Cool. That being said, we're gonna measure this distance. Which is 13 inches. So we're gonna make 2 spars for the central tunnel that are 13 inches long. The tunnel on the other one was about 1.5 inches tall. You can go as high as 2 inches. That's the thing about this plane. Each version of it, there's only 3. There's 3. One of them I didn't even film. There are 3 incarnations of this plane. Each of them was slightly different in dimensions, but they all were 40-inch wingspan. So for this one, I'm probably gonna go with 2 inches, 2¼ inches tall. You can always trim it later if you need to. one spar. Gonna go right there. Seems kind of high if you ask me. Gonna taper it, don't worry. You just want the very rough sizes of them so you can have something to edit against. That's clearly too tall, which is fine. Better to cut them too big and trim them to size than to cut them too small and just waste material. Gonna be a fairly slim plane, slim version of it. So I'll probably put one spar towards the center. Gonna measure how far the spar is gonna be out so I can have some consistency on each side. About 6.5. Sure. Same over here. You can draw a rough draft of your airfoil shape. Draw it too high so you can trim it. Close, pretty close first try, but we can trim a little more. pretty close too. Maybe one more trim and we should be good. Perfect. Gonna just trace that over here. Cut that out. Try this one on this side, see if it fits as well. Yes, it does. And take your hot glue gun. Put a fairly generous thing on there, unless you're weight conscious about the craft. About 1/2 inch. And on the inside, hold it there for a sec so it can set. 1/2 inch behind the leading edge, I'm saying, to give this crease enough time to unfold and actually touch this. Otherwise, you'll be impeding the crease and it'll be harder to actually glue it and fold it. Also, if it's too far up and you have to force it, you'll see a ridge in the top of it. If somebody wants that for an aesthetic, it's fine. Same over here. The other one had lights in it. I'm not gonna put lights in this one. If you guys want, I can put a tutorial for that, but right now I'm not gonna do that for this specific tutorial. I'm just trying to make the plan itself. But you would put lights in at this stage while you're, obviously still have it open. And with that, just feel for it at the leading edge. And it should close like that perfectly fine. Okay, that's good. You don't want to close it yet because obviously you still have internals to do. You would want to put your servos in and all of that. So to do that, I'm gonna have to mark where they're gonna go. To the top. Just servos. I got these little guys. The micro servos should do the job. It's not too fast to plane. It's not too heavy to plane either. Test this airfoil. See where I want it. But I want the edges of the servo to stick out. Kind of just want the top to just pop out and just, you know. So somewhere about right here. How far is that from the end? About 5.5. About 5.5. Draw a little guideline so it can reach out into the wing. When we start, it's going to be facing upwards. So yeah, right against the spar should be fine. Right there. Okay. Can do is glue those in place. Both on the bottom and the side touching. It's a little on the side touching the spar. Make sure it doesn't go anywhere. Mid-flight, that'll be bad. Same over here. So there's multiple ways you can do the same thing. As for this mounting of the servos, you could figure out where you want them also by closing this and then cutting the cutout in, putting it to the bottom if you want it flush, or to the top if you don't care. And then wherever it sits, you press an indent like this into wherever you want it to be, and you mimic that for the other side and then glue them down. But yeah, that's usually what I do. Every time I make one of these, I do something different. So yeah. So there's some variation. Each one has its own unique differences. But it's all in the same family of plane. Okay, now that that's done, the way you're gonna get them through here is you're gonna fold this over. You're gonna peer through the bottom. Just gonna look down here, see where it's at. You can make an incision directly above it. Okay, that's about where it is. Same over here. That checks out to about where it is. Also, if you don't know, you can again just make an indent on the inside by pressing against where it's supposed to be. And it'll also tell you where the circle is going to end up. Oh, I dropped my X-Acto knife. Those two indents, and you cut from there. So yeah, my camera got cut off for a second. Didn't know. We only missed this part right here where I just glued these here. You just put a bead along the edge, and then you just glue it down on the outsides of the line, the guidelines that we made. I also cut a little window at the bottom of them, as you can see right here, for the lines to pass through for the electronics. And we're pretty much done here with the internals for the wings. We can just close these really and glue them shut, which we were about to do. And the way we trim this down is we make an outline after this has set in its final state, its final little position, and then we just outline that and trim it like that. What you can do to make it stronger is also put a bead of glue right here along the spar, but it's not completely necessary. Actually, probably going to do that on this side just to demonstrate. Depending on how you cut your plane, the top will not come over the bottom. Ideally, you want it to come over the bottom, because that's what your ailerons are gonna, your elevons are gonna connect to. So you can either do some trimming, which is usually what I end up doing anyway, or you can just measure it to be a bit more generous. Like I said, this is why this is usually longer than the extension over at the edge, because of that needed to curve. This is usually an inch more or inch and a half more versus this being just half an inch more. So I'm gonna trim this a little bit on both sides. way better. Same thing over here. Now with this, I usually just do this first part, and then once it gets about level, I just trace it straight back to accommodate the motor, which I have attached to this. It's gonna sit like right here and go from there. Probably too small of a pellet for this guy, but we'll sort that out later. Glue. Alright, so now we got that done for the most part. Can use a little bit more trimming, but we'll get to that later. I want the little winglets on the side as well. And you would just even this out along with the bottom edge. You can either cut it like this or that in a sec. As for now, we're going to complete this tunnel. And the way to do that is measure out a piece that is the same width as the tunnel itself. And then it's about 2 3/8. That's what it should be, considering it's 2 inches plus each 3/16 thick piece of foam board. So yeah, we go from there. Make it about as long as it's, maybe a little longer so we can have a little extra to play with. We want to make this line about as long as this, as the actual plane, which is about, well, the body of the plane. The central part of the plane is about 13 inches, but you want to make it about closer to 14 because there is a curve. Just 10. 11, 12, 13. 14. And by the way, doesn't matter to me. All right, to clean it up, instead of having these white edges, you can have, get this off first. You can have the black side on those parts. Let me show you how. You measure out the thickness of each sheet, and that's about 3/16. Go up and do that again to create a nice straight line. You don't want to go all the way because you're going to end up making a door like you saw on the other plans. I'd like to go right about where the bottom of the servo start, so where the cutouts start. That's about 5.5 inches. You can make that completely permanent if you want. And that's what I usually do. So about 5.5. Cut that off. As for this, what you're gonna do is score this, but fairly deeply. Don't go all the way through. Do it on this side too. And bend that back to like pry it away. You can tear this piece off while keeping the paper. And it ends up like that. And this will fit like this on top, but also it'll go inside and in between the parts while covering up the top. See, like that. And glue that. What you're also gonna do is end up gluing the wing to the central part. So this little space right there. You just pry it open a little. Take a spare piece somewhere. Just press it into it. Make sure it dries first, you know, or cools for that matter. Do the same thing on the other side. prop up this side to like force it into it more. Should be about good. Too rigid. And as you can see, it's starting to take shape just fine. At this point, we can go to the wingtips. And just lightly score while keeping the blade straight, vertical. One. That's two. Nice and straight. You can even sand those if you want. As for the front, you have some options on what you want to do. If you want to make it flat, you'll cut it across. If you don't want to make it flat, you can actually mimic it and it adheres just fine. And that's what we're going to do here actually, just to show you. Just trace it out. What I usually do with this side is, since I want it to bend, I don't do the scoring thing. I just remove one of the sides of paper, and that allows it to bend that way. See? So it can bend like this just fine now. You're still gonna do the same thing with the sides for that. So let's go ahead and do that. Again, you score it, kind of like you've already done in the first place. Better to use a straight edge for this anyway. Pop it off. Go. Slips right in. Except you can also do the front, and that'll allow it to better go onto it. You can be pretty generous with this because it has to taper down anyway. The benefit of having a flat nose is you could just cut a significant portion off in half the paper and then wrap it around the bottom and tape it, as well as glue it, and it'd be really strong. So yeah, like that. What you do is what I do is I go to about this first intersection and I'll cut across here so I can glue part of it down like this, that's permanent, and also have a door that flips open so I can get to the internals. With the flat bottom, the flat front, you could have it to where this entire part is a door. With this, you can as well, but it's not gonna want to bend properly. So I'm actually probably gonna show you that. We're gonna convert this into the front, to the flat one. Go across, yes. Now flat in the front, so it's even. We can even keep this point here because, well, it's gonna be stylish. It's gonna wrap around the bottom. So yeah, it'll be. Elevate this so it doesn't prematurely stick. Put in there. Nice and flush. Put it around the bottom. Right. And I'm smoothing this out so I can fold better and not have that random hump. So I'm going to strengthen this a little by putting some hot glue here. All right, so about right there, and that is how far is 3 1/16. So we just go across. Fold that back. And you can glue this in to be permanent. We can make it to where this guy closes too. to actually tape the inside of this so the paper doesn't come off. Better. As for this, you can put a little glue here to make sure this doesn't disconnect just a little bit. A little spare piece. Another piece on the hinge. I'm gonna measure out a piece that's 1.5 inches. But this is actually fine how it is, so I'll leave it like that. For this, I'm going to bevel this part. I'm going to round it off a little so it can slide. Something can slide over like that. It's going to hook under here. It's going to go about right there. Right? But I'm also going to give a little shark fin right here as a little handle to pull it. Shark fin can be any kind of shape. Mine's going to be like this. Doesn't have to be a shark fin at all either. It can just be there, period. Just be the little door catch. Kind of gonna hook under. It's gonna be hard to bevel this from this angle. It's gonna be like a pass through kind of thing. Yeah, just like that. actually for this, I want it to stick and not have a chance to come off. So I'm gonna remove this. Should be able to get a good little adhesion from that. The door is definitely gonna stay. Nice little door. There you go. Gonna make the wingtips now. Sides are about 3 inches long, so we can make the wingtips drastically longer than that. 5 inches wouldn't be a stretch. 6 even. Yeah, 6 sounds nice. That's 6. That's 12. Personally, I think these wings fly just fine without winglets on the ends, but I always had them on there, whether they be for style or the minimal function that they do. But at this size, they're likely to make a pretty big difference in stability. Let's see, design wise, we can start with the actual curvature. Base curve. You just go from there. Probably have a negative kind of slope from the bottom. Something like that. Something like that. Now we just mimic that over here, and we're golden. looks fairly nice. Gonna prop the wing up just a bit, because this is supposed to go under. Maybe just a little more here. Okay. Elevons. Elevons are a simple shape. Down by 1. Over by 1. Going from the point, we'll go over 2 inches. About 2 3/4, 3/8. One more. That's another one. Proper. Now we make another. Just like that. Need to bevel the lower edges so it can actually do its thing. Easiest way to do that is to go on the edge of the table. Nice bevel. Alright, attach these with tape. Now the other one. Now I'm going to make the box, power box, and connect this to it so it can actually connect to this. Just make a box that'll slide into the back here, and we'll fasten it with anything from toothpicks to barbecue skewers. Or if you want a more permanent thing where you can't swap it out, you can just glue it in there. Just under 2 due to inaccuracies. Bound to happen sometimes. Get a bit of adhesion this way. Test it. Yep, nice and snug. Double up a little bit. Just fine for the test fit. Yep. Now I'm going to go with the control arms. These are going to have to be pretty tall considering my terrible design. Terrible designing job. Should use an old credit card for me, just throwing stuff together. Now to mount these, I'm going to measure how far away from the edge these are. 1.5 should be fine. Same over here. When making the connections to put the control arms and connect the servos to the actual control surfaces, you want it to be right behind it, vertically. And you want the connection point, the pivot point, where the end of this control arm goes, to connect above the pivot joint. So this goes forward, and at an angle you can see it's over the pivot point. Same over here. Gonna attach the fastener. These like to come off, so I'm gonna use some JB Weld thread locker. Go ahead and use that for the other side. There we go. Now we're going to test these servos. Probably put them in their correct positions too. So you just go through the little routine of hooking everything up. Yes, here we go. See how I hooked it up when I put it through. Feed everything through. everything up. I believe that was number 1 here. It's been so long. I figured out. And it was left to right, I believe. Right. It lives. Okay. Let's see, can you pick yourself up? So power to weight is beyond 1-to-1. Should have no problem with that amount of thrust. And yeah, that's pretty much it. It works. I should adjust my throws. It actually has a preset for, as you can see, the last plane, and I just kept it the same. I need to adjust it for the size of the throws here. These are a bit longer than the previous planes. So yeah, and these don't stick out as far, so there's not going to be as much torque. There's going to be more torque, but not as much travel. So yeah. There it is. Well guys, yeah, that was the build video, and I hope you guys followed along and was able to make the plane and all of that. You can stop at any moment, obviously, it's a video, so there's no one pass and then if you miss something, you're just screwed. No. Yeah, so thank you for watching. Like, comment, subscribe if you want, that'll be nice. They help the channel out, help it grow. I'm actually thinking of heading in the tech channel direction. Let me know what you guys think of that. Just another test, just another test.